Welcome to an hour of HealthMade Radio. HealthMade is a community for natural health seekers where we educate people about common health conditions and share extensive research on the most effective natural health treatments and promote legislation that protects our health freedoms. A core concept belief is in the innate intelligence and healing power of the body, and if properly supported spiritually, emotionally, and nutritionally, it can find its way back to health. HealthMade Radio will bring information from integrative health experts throughout the world. Health is what you make it. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I will be your host. Today's guest is Hairdoc TK. Hairdoc TK has been battling breast plant illness for many, many years. In fact, she is a former. She's appeared in a lot of different TV shows like Baywatch. She is a theater-trained, SAG-trained actress, retired stunt. She's owned her company, Holistic Hair Extensions, where she focuses on holistic hair extensions and restoration, holistic hair color, corrections, and so forth. And she is involved in a lot of different charitable organizations to educate people about the danger of breast implants and also what they can do in regards to recovering from cancer. TK, it's such an honor to have you on the show, and in fact, you go by a different name. What is that name?
Actually, TK is fine. That's fine, and thank you so much for having me on board.
My pleasure. But you also call yourself as the Hairdoc. Yeah, and,
I do, and that's actually something that was coined probably a decade ago from one of the support groups that I lead. It's called trichotillomania, and what that is a behavior-focused disorder, which sometimes occurs depending on the situation of disease, and it entails people that pick and pull out their hair. So at a support group that I had been running for about a decade, someone had coined the phrase Hairdoc, and that's kind of where that all started to go with my name.
Oh, beautiful. And so you had a career in Hollywood. You showed up you appeared on a lot of these different series, well-known series. I mean, what are some of those series that I know Baywatch, but where else were you involved?
I did actually a couple covers for some magazines that I don't wish to talk about on radio, but I was in a clip called The Bleeding Edge, which is another documentary about implanted devices, because, when we talk about this breast implant issue and the groups that I formed, it kind of goes a little bit deeper than just implants. Sorry if I get off the tangent about that. As far as the other Hollywood things, and that's also in my TED Talk as well. When I actually went to Hollywood to do the Baywatch and got offered a Playboy position, that kind of journey of my life out there was short-lived as well, and I kind of cover that in TED Talk as why that kind of transpired very quickly. After I left Hollywood, because the whole point of the cancer story and my advocacy and the charity is because I was informed that back then to even do Playboy or this Baywatch episode, I would have to get breast implants. So it kind of started from that about 26 years plus ago.
Yeah, so because you grew up in a very conservative Christian family, and in fact, it was in like Amish country, wasn't it?
Actually, it was. It's called Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and at that time, even growing up, I did a lot of things that I could within realm of my household because my parents are extreme conservative Christians. But at that time in school, I got into theater pretty heavy. And, I told my parents at about 17 that I felt like I wanted to move to Hollywood so I could take care of my family. And that's kind of how it went.
Yeah. And then coming to Hollywood and obviously you were successful because I know that transition is very, very hard for a lot of people to be able to be recognized like you were. But one of the components, and this is something that a lot of women are dealing with, is that it's the image that you're trying to present, and especially then in Hollywood, you need to have breast implants in order to be able to appear the way that they would like you to appear.
Yeah, that's correct. And not only that, but there's also a lot of extensions. So to counterpoint that, my main thing when I was in Hollywood, I did a lot of celebrity hair, and it kind of started like that. And then we got cast for different roles in New Mexico because I have got a pretty strong background of doing some stunt work in Albuquerque back in the day. But, it all revolved around image, like you say, hair extensions, Botox, face chemical peels, injections, implants, but here we are 35 plus years later. It's kind of going back to a circle now. It's kind of back to the root issue.
And so with that then, we're all of a sudden, obviously you were fit, you were healthy. To be a stunt person, you would need to be able to handle a lot of physical activity, but then all of a sudden you started to see your health slipping. And so what were some of the symptoms or some of the things that you started to notice?
Well, really what's weird is if I look at it now, because I'm 52 years young now, when I got the implants, I was almost like 25. So back then, and I talk about this in my book that I'm writing, there's a couple different companies making implants, whether it be saline or silicone capsule, it doesn't make a difference. But back then in the day, we didn't know what we know now about the adjuvant. So when I after the implants, I didn't really feel anything. I would honestly say even on the interview with CBS or somebody a couple months ago here in Phoenix, like if I didn't have the cancer and wasn't diagnosed with renal cell carcinoma, I never would have put this all together that it was caused from the adjuvants of the implants. So I didn't really feel different, so to speak. I felt dizzy, brain foggy, but there wasn't like, hey, there's something wrong with you. It was just one day I woke up in Phoenix, Arizona. It's called Gold's Gym. I was the head of the athletic department, so I taught spin for what's called Johnny G. It's extremely high impact, 1,500 calories, 40 minutes, lot of weight bearing. You got to be pretty good to be a spin instructor, right? Especially in this type of work. And I went into my spin class one day and I kind of tapped out, and it kind of just started there. And I was like, what's going on? Well, that's kind of when everything sort of just downward spiraled. It's like the cancer, the knee issue, the health, the heart problems. It just kind of all downward spiraled right when I hit about 40. So that's kind of when everything sort of started to shift for me personally.
Yes, what's interesting then is that this took quite a period of time, meaning it didn't really all of a sudden, it didn't. You had the breast implant, and then just shortly thereafter you became symptomatic. This was something that it was like 15 years later that you started to really notice the impact.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say, because even now kind of going back in the journal and writing everything down, now I see things, because at first it was like, hey, you have to have a knee reconstruction. I'm like, I'm not having surgery. I was like probably 30-something. I'm like, knee surgery? And they're like, yeah, it's because you're physical. I'm like, people play sports for a long time before their knee blows out. So it kind of was like, And then about a year after that, I had some issues with my teeth. And I'm talking to this dentist going, hey, this is kind of weird. Don't you think this teeth issue has something to do with my knees or something maybe going on? No one could figure anything out. It was like weird things. And then like a year later, like my hearing kind of got weird. And then after that, like I started having weird stomach issues, which was SIBO. So I'm like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, gingivitis, knee issues, calcium depletion. I live in Arizona. It's the desert, vitamin D. I just started putting things together because I'm like, something isn't right here. And I just kept getting more dismissal. We call it gaslighting, because every time I went to the doctor, they're like, you're crazy. It's not because of this. It's because you're doing too much work. Even my dentist said, because, back in the day, we do crazy things, or tongue rings, get tattoos or whatever. My doctor even said at the time, you have pockets that went from 3 millimeters to like 11. I said, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like completely healthy. I don't drink, smoke, do drugs. Like, this is crazy. He goes, it's because you eat too much protein. So it was like all these weird things started happening. I'm like, what's happening to me? And then bang, right after that, my hair fell out. So I knew that something was going on. And it actually only really happened when I moved back to Arizona. Because when I lived in California and New Mexico, I didn't have the same symptoms as when I moved back to Phoenix. So that's kind of when everything just, about 40 years old, it all just tapped out at the same time.
And so with this then, when did you Yeah, so all of a sudden you start to notice these changes. Your knee going out, and then hearing, and then gingivitis, and all these things. I mean, was your energy still good though? Did you kind of rest of the body aches and pains, or how? What else were you feeling at that time?
I mean, I guess to be honest, that's probably another book I'm writing. So I was also married at that time. I was married to a doctor, and to be honest, it's like at that time, because he's kind of on the same thing, hiking, working out. I didn't really complain about it. So all of those issues were there, and I probably got 50 stacks of paperwork, doctor after doctor after doctor, and finally I just said, I can't do this anymore. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, there's something wrong with me. I can't do this anymore. And it's like, I don't want to complain because I've never wanted to be the victim. But I said, I think there's something wrong. I think I have, I honestly thought I had HIV because I've been living in Hollywood. Maybe I have HIV or something. Something's wrong with me. I just kept losing weight. I think I weighed 90 pounds by the time that I finally went to the doctor and got the diagnosis. So my energy definitely was gone. But the type of person that I am, and it's the whole point of the charity I created, Superheroes, I was like, I just got to keep going. And I just kept reading papers, reaching out to friends that I had that were naturopathic, trying to find chemist people to try and put this all together and go, what's happening? I can't be dying at 40 years old. Did you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Health Made Radio.
Now, back to Health Made Radio with your host, Dr. Michael Karlfeldt.
Welcome back to Health Made Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Hairdoc TK. She is a TED Talk presenter. She's also organized. She's an advocate, health advocate. She has run her business for 30 years successfully, and also former actress. So while going through all of these symptoms, and then, I mean, you were saying like 90 pounds. I mean, it's not like you are you have a good height to you, so 90 pounds, right. That's not a lot at all. So
it's not.
What was kind of the next step? I mean, what happened after that?
So that's about the time that I was going to actually, with the relationship with my spouse, I also do a lot of advocating off the cancer issue as for my business. So he had kind of propositioned for a divorce at that time. This is like, kind of a couple years in the marriage because he didn't understand why I was so sick all the time. Well, long story short, then that's kind of when I finally decided I was going to see a homeopath because I go, there's got to be something else. Out of the blue, I get this test. It's kind of to me back then was cuckoo, but now it all resonates. He put my finger in this machine. He's like, you're carcinogenic. I said, that's completely impossible. I don't do drugs. I'm healthy. I meditate. I do workout. I do all the stuff. He goes, well, I'm sorry to tell you, you're carcinogenic. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what that means. He's like, take these supplements, go see this neurologist. And I'm like, okay. So he did a couple tests. The neurologist sends me back. He says, I think you need to see a gastro. Long point of the story is that's when I had the cancer diagnosis. So technically, if you look on a scale and you kind of go back and you read my labs, I think I actually had the tumor for about 6 years that was growing inside. But because of the lifestyle I was living, I was keeping the tumor kind of down where it didn't, mastitate to the rest of my body. But had I not got that diagnosis when I did, I probably wouldn't still be here talking to you about it today.
And what kind of tumor was that? What were you diagnosed with?
Renal cell carcinoma, and at that time they said it was 0.6 and not to let it get to like 7. And I said, well, I don't understand what that means, because when they first diagnosed me, I said renal cell carcinoma is like I don't even drink, and they're like, this doesn't have to do with drinking, it's just shitty luck, DNA. I said, no, I don't really believe in that either because genetics is only like 10%. The rest is our mind and how we eat. There's no way I have this. I go, you guys need to rerun the labs. There's no way. So I kind of was in denial for about 90 days because I'm like, there's no way I have cancer. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And to be honest with you, I didn't do anything for 90 days. And at that time with my marriage, because we were sort of separating, he's like, well, you need to have surgery. I said, I'm not doing surgery. I'm going to figure out how to do this myself. And I actually went to Costa Rica that year out of the blue. I had asked him to take me to Costa Rica because that was kind of the first trip we'd done together to kind of see if we could bond. Went there and I did some IV therapy for 4 weeks. And literally I came back and I felt fantastic for a couple months.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you still had your kidney at that time. They hadn't taken that out yet.
Yes, because at that time I was fighting with my neurologist because I said, are you sure there's no other way? Because, I get back then maybe there wasn't as much information as we know now. Because had I know what I know now, I never would have had the surgery because I know I could have shrunk the tumor myself.
Yeah.
But I kept saying to the neurologist, are you sure? And then after this whole thing went through, I said, now, if we go in there and remove it, because I'm like 40-something and I'm still in stunt work, how am I going to go back to doing what I do to make the money I need to make? Yeah. Well, you can't do that. I'm like, okay, well, do I have to change diet? So it's just kind of like ongoing, no help. Like I couldn't get an answer, couldn't figure it out why. The whole answer was everyone has cancer. It's just some shitty luck. I'm like, I don't think so.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, exactly. So then you, and when did you get to the point where you thought, well, okay, we'll need to have surgery? I mean, what made you kind of shift into that direction?
So after the last scan, which I told the neurologist, I said, I don't want to do any more scans because it's making this worse. Is there any other way to figure out and monitor this kidney issue? And he's like, well, not really. And I said, okay, well, a blood test, something like that, my GFR. So I'd asked him to run a blood test, and at that point, my GFR was 20, and I didn't know what I know now. And I was like, okay. And he's like, well, this is really bad. We're going to have to get you on dialysis. I said, I'm not doing that either. I forget it, So I think at that point was when it was almost encapsulated the whole kidney, and they're like, don't remove the kidney. It's going to go outside, and it's going to be all over, and you're going to die in a year. That was kind of exactly how he said it. You have 1 year to live if you don't do this. I'm like, you're freaking kidding? So I stalled for about another 90 days, and I had a couple good colleagues in Phoenix at the time that, because a lot of my client base, fortunately, were doctors. I have a lot of naturopaths that used to come to me because we are like-minded, and they're like, gosh, you're going to really have to do this. It's like a 7 now. It's almost to the whole kidney, and I'm just like, ugh. So I finally decided, and I had the nephrectomy.
Okay. So they removed the cancer. You were then cancer-free, correct?
Blah, blah. That's what they say. NED, TK. No evidence of disease. But after he removed the kidney, he says this to me, but we only give this a 5-year rate. I said, well, maybe you should not say that to people and change your diagnosis or whatever you said and just retract that from the universe. And he goes, I have to tell you. I said, no, you don't have to tell me that because that just puts stuff in my mind. I'm going to live forever. I'm never going to have this come back, right? And it was really weird because after I had the nephrectomy, no information on diet. I'm like, is there a diet for people like me? Do I need to be renal cell? Do I need to stop eating meat? Because before this epiphany, I ate SAD, Standard American Diet, what I thought was healthy, and I ate a lot of meat back then, a lot. They had no answers for me, zero, nothing.
No, yeah, because to them, they removed it, now it's gone. And diet doesn't have anything to do with anything.
No, he actually said to me, I need to see a psychologist. I just was like, I have to leave.
Yeah. So after that, then so they removed the kidney. They declared you cancer-free, or
Correct.
no sign of disease. And then what transpired? I mean, what happened after then?
So after that, I got separated then from the husband at the time so I could try and focus because I decided, I said, after this cancer, I'm going to start researching because I used to be a facilitator for a company called Look Good, Feel Better, and they've done all these magazine write-ups of me. And I've facilitated for the Arizona Kidney Foundation and all these magazine write-ups. And I'm like, all of these things that we're doing, these charities, why do these people still have kidney disease? So I says to the ex, I have to just go to Sedona and be away for a minute and see if this works. And I went completely like raw. I mean, I was on this cuckoo thing, and I threw out everything, plastic, metal, anything I could. And I moved to Sedona. I lived there for about 6 weeks. You know, it was expensive up there, and I completely went vegan. And then when I got back, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel almost kind of better. So I started going back to spin, because they told me you can never go back to spin. You can't go hiking. You can never ride your bike. You can't do any of this because now you have one kidney. So I went back to spin. Unfortunately, that only lasted for like about a year, and then I kind of got tapped out and got sick again a year later.
Okay, and so you get sick, and symptom-wise, what when you say sick, what does that mean?
Kind of the same thing, and I actually said to my ex at the time, I said, I think the cancer's back because I'm having similar issues. And he goes, what issues is that? I said, this SIBO thing, this diarrhea, my stomach. I lost a lot of weight. I think then, by that time, I think I probably weighed 80 pounds. And I have pictures of that. I look like a skeleton. And I said, I don't know, something's not right. They removed the cancer, supposedly. I went completely plant-based, and I'm still freaking sick. And I can't even get up to go to bed. Like, I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. I felt like I was going to be handicapped. I was even researching, hey, how do I get on disability? Because there's no way I can do this. Like, I was devastated. And that was already after the kidney was removed, you know? So I started joining groups, and I'm like, there's got to be something else, because I took everything out. I took my fillings out, had the dentist remove all of my fillings. They're like, you're crazy. Doesn't matter. I want it out. I'm not wearing a hearing aid anymore because I can't do that. I said, I'm not doing no pacemaker. I'm not doing anything. I have to be completely plant-based and vegan. So that's when I found out about the breast implants, because I had joined a group online, and I started researching. And I did that for almost like 2 years, 24/7, every day of the week.
Great. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Health Made Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Hairdoc TK.
Now, back to Health Made Radio with your host, Dr. Michael Karlfeldt.
Welcome back to Health Made Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Hairdoc TK. So, you had your kidney out. You were declared, cancer-free, and then all of a sudden you started to feel all these symptoms again, and thinking the cancer was coming back. And now all of a sudden you find out that maybe it's your breast implants. So why did you go there?
So that's another story. So I work with a lot of chemist type people. I conglomerate with what I do, because a lot of my business, like I said, revolves around doctors and naturopaths, because I'm more holistic. And I said, hey, what do you guys think about this situation? Because, I'm married to a doctor, but he's not getting this. Like, he literally doesn't get this. He's like, well, everybody has implants. I'm like, no, but you think they're making me sick. I don't understand why. I said, well, because you eat pork. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting sick or have some kind of tick bite or something. So I reach out to my chemist friend, who's written like all these books about metabolic system and cancer being metabolic depletion. And he says, hey, I don't want to say this to you because you're married to a doctor, but you need to get the implants out. They've got formaldehyde, silicone, blah, 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 and it could be affecting you, TK, because your kidney's trying to push out all that stuff. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, your breast implants, take them out and go back to your vegan diet and, add some salmon to your lifestyle and meditate and you'll be fine. And it kind of just started with that, because I go, if this chemist guy kind of is going to tell me this, he must know something that I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? And then he directed me kind of to a group online. He goes, you may just want to check it out. And I kind of did. And that's started a whole nother advocacy, because even the implants, as we talk about it, it's not specifically the implant itself. It's the adjuvant in the implant, which we call Asia, autoimmunity induced by silicone adjuvants. That's what I'm trying to explain to people. Even if you take the implants out, you have to get to that root issue of disease, because you could have a silicone bleed in your bloodstream affecting your cellular energy,
So, tell me a little bit more about, the breast implant seems to be such a huge issue, and obviously, like we're mentioning earlier in the interview, women, they like to portray a good, sexy image, and then, larger breast, or, the breast size is very important to them, and then also, obviously, if they're married to a doctor or somebody that really promotes that.
Right.
So what are some, so you joining these advocacy groups, what are you seeing, what are people talking about and complaining in regard to symptom-wise when they're dealing with breast implants?
Oh my gosh. Half of us, it's funny because even on the TED Talk, it's like 30 symptoms. And I even say to people, most normal people have those symptoms, so you wouldn't relate it to your implants because you walk around like that every day. A lot of it's from the crap you're eating or the stuff you're watching or the stuff you're breathing. But half of the people on my groups are almost to the point where they're disabled, like nonstop vertigo and dizziness, a constant tilt table test thinking we have heart issues, constant joint pain, 24/7 inflammation, 24/7 SIBO. Every day we're having like gut issues or experiencing candida or yeast or bacterial overgrowth. They want to put you on 50 pills, send you to the psychiatrist, because up until now, most doctors didn't understand breast implant illness. Some still kind of don't get it, but a lot of them are starting to just do explants now, because half of us that are on groups, there's thousands of us that are still disabled trying to clean up the mess that it's left inside.
So and you call it then breast implant illness, so BII, but then also
Correct.
Some people then refer to it as ASIA, which is kind of an autoimmune induced disease or symptoms from adjuvants. And
Correct.
like you mentioned, the adjuvant is then actually the silicone in the breast implant. But then because you have saline and you have the silicone, so if you have saline, is that safer then?
Right, and that's why we're saying with Asia, because it doesn't matter if there's saline. Actually, saline could be just as bad, because then you're going to get bacteria, yeast, and mold, which we talk a lot about, the train theory and cellular clearing out the fish tank type thing, right? But if the silicone is in there, it's going to be a bleed. If they don't do the explant right, then your bloodstream gets taxed with all the silicone that bleeds into the cells. If it's saline, then you have the opportunity of getting mold and yeast, which a lot of the women have now, which has gone to their brain, because this goes way deeper than that. Like now people are being diagnosed with all of these like brain issues and neurological disorders, when really it's like, hey, this could be Lyme disease or from the galdium in your MRI, or the breast implant stuff's like tapping up to our head, So it's like we're trying to educate people. It doesn't matter if it's saline, silicone, or gummy worms, because the bag actually, that the capsule, which is what the fluid sits in, has 37 metals, formaldehyde, silicone, vanadium, dyes. If you see the list on my TED Talk, there's like 37 things that are constantly tapping everybody's kidney and organs 24/7. And where they're sitting in the pocket, if the pocket isn't completely encapsulated inside the pocket in the chest, you're working out. So here you are, people working out, and your temperature is going to like 102. Well, now you're going in there and pushing all that mold and yeast back into your areas. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So you're actually leaking out the adjuvant, because the capsules, when we explant, we make people save these capsules now, and half of them have teeny microscopic holes that you can't see naked, but you go, hey, this is in your body, and that stuff's just leaking into your body for days after days through these tiny little places to get out of the capsule.
So you're actually, when you have that, you're exposing yourself then to heavy metal toxicity that's continually leaking into the system. You're also exposing yourself to, you're talking about formaldehyde and other chemicals that's leaking out.
Yes, and this is the whole sad thing, is then you have somebody over here like this. Excuse me, I shouldn't say that. You have somebody over here that doesn't know the same things we do, not saying that he doesn't, but he's a doctor that specializes in something else. They're educating these people now to start going to do infrared. Oh, you're sick, go do infrared, go do this. Yeah, infrared is wonderful, unless you have breast implants inside your body, because that infrared now is pushing even more of that silicone and even more of those chemicals into the kidney. So because I was so healthy, I actually made myself sicker, because after I had the cancer, I'm a full hardcore oxygen therapy. I have an infrared box in the sun. I was doing that twice a day, and I'm working out twice a day, and I'm constantly sweating, thinking that I'm actually helping. I was making it worse for myself. Does that make sense? I made it much worse.
Yeah, because you're like you're saying, you're increasing the temperature, which will then increase the leak and also increase the release of all these heavy metals and chemicals. And then also just by increasing, lymphatic flow, you're then transporting all these different chemicals and heavy metals to different areas of the body much faster.
Well, not only that, but then also, because we're trying to run a rabbit race, it's a group of women. There's a couple thousand of us. No, we're not doctors, but we had to study enough to save our life. So we're like, okay, this has to do with food. Well, then all of us are starting to get Lyme disease and Epstein-Barr. I'm like, how are we getting all these co-infections? Because the fish tank is dirty. We clean out the fish tank. We don't put more crap in it to clean it out, like what they're trying to do with vaccines, right? Well, then we start talking, and I go, how many of you have had vaccines? And they're like, we're not doing any of that. I said, well, we've obviously had something because now we have Epstein-Barr and we all have Lyme disease. I said, how is that happening from implants? Well, here we are now knowing that these capsules that are the implants, they feed off of certain food. So lo and behold, the food we were all eating was feeding the implants. You get what I'm saying? Causing more co-infections, more inflammation, more toxicity.
We're going to take a quick break. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Hairdoc TK.
Now, back to Health Made Radio with your host, Dr. Michael Karlfeldt.
Welcome back to Health Made Radio. Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Hairdoc TK. And we're talking about breast implant illness and also how prevalent it is and how it can be very difficult to detect if that is what you're dealing with. So you covered then that by the presence, and it doesn't matter if it's saline or if it is silicone breast implant, it is going to leak out heavy metals and chemicals. But now you're also saying that in addition to that, there are also a bunch of different infectious agents that, like Lyme. I mean, Lyme is a big deal, which it can literally immobilize people just on its own. And then different other, like Epstein-Barr and mold. I mean, all of these are very dangerous pathogens that can really create cancer, autoimmune in the body. I mean, it can really do a lot of different things. So that is also involved in breast implant illness.
Oh, yeah, it's on all my labs, and I probably can't get on this with you and your show right now, but even the Lyme thing, and I try and educate people now, you don't always get Lyme from being bit by a tick. It's in vaccinations. This is clear with the situation we're having right now with this COVID stuff, because it's a multitude of all these animal whatever that they're putting in there. But like a lot of us breast people, like after we explant, now we have to go in there and clean up the whole tank. So we have to fix our gut because we have SIBO. What do we have SIBO from? From all the antibiotics that they try and push down us, which are causing small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, right? Then we have to go in there and clean up our metabolic issue, which is almost hard if you don't have the explant. And then here we are later, most of us have Lyme and we have Epstein-Barr because those specific infections are feeding off the adjuvants that are in the breast implant. So we have a lot of work to do. Like I say, you can't just take out the implants and then go, hey, I'm fine. I'm not kidding. Some of these poor women have spent thousands of dollars going to Lyme centers and trying to get treated, and the doctor has no idea what he's doing. I said, you can't even treat these people until they've removed the implants from their body. You're making us 100 times worse. And I had a specific guy that I would send people to, but unfortunately he passed away last summer. But there's hardly anybody out there that understands you can't treat this until the issue is removed from the body.
And so you're using the word explant a lot. So that actually means that the removal then of the breast implant. And it is the removal not just of the implant, but also the sac that it is in, correct? Because some do
yes.
Where they remove the implant, but not the sac.
No, it's not. You're never going to get well. And I know on my TED Talk as well, Dr. Feng is one of my big supporters. Now, she's on my talk, and, you guys will probably meet later, and she doesn't even do surgery anymore. She just does explants. But the whole thing that these doctors, and why I was trying to educate in Phoenix, they would literally go in there, pop in under the arm, remove the fluid, let the sac in there, and they'd redo another implant. I'm like, no, you can't really do that. So we started to try and educate people that whole sac has to come out because that piece that's in there that adheres to the rib cage is what's going to suck into the bloodstream and cause cellular damage forever. Like, that's the whole issue. Like, when I had my explant done, I think I was one of the first in Arizona that had it done right. You know, we make them get the capsules back. We send them to pathology. They're being tested because right now they've actually just released, it's called BIALC, and it's a blood disorder such as like lymphoma type situation that's caused from the adjuvants from the implants. Like, it's a specific diagnosis now that they just finally released out. I think they just released that about 6 months ago.
So, and I mean, obviously in your case, you developed cancer from this, and so here you're talking about another cancer. And that's important for people to understand, is that, you know, this is something that can really impact you in such a detrimental way that you can even develop then a life-threatening disease like cancer.
People will. I mean, even in a lot of the groups, a lot of people don't want to come out and say it, or they haven't been tested yet. And the main group leader, when I took over, I had another group I was in. This lady's probably been sick for 15 years because they can't figure it out. I mean, this is a serious situation, and that's what I'm trying to educate these ladies. You can't just go in there and change your implants out. You have to take the whole thing out with the capsule. The doctor has to be skilled, know what he's doing, because, you know, hey, there's a 90% chance you're going to die at the explant because they have to scrape this off your chest. Well, they have to do that. They can't leave a piece of that in there. It's like I tell people, the fish tank. You leave some dirty crap in the fish tank, and then you try and swim around in that. It's not going to work. You have to clean out the whole fish tank, you know. So when we call it explant, it's a huge, huge thing. I mean, my whole situation, like I said, because I was married to a doctor, I was very limited. I couldn't go do these whole, I want to have a lawsuit, or I want to do all this, because when I had the surgery done, I did it at his hospital. They were hush-hush. No one wanted to say anything. Thank God in the hospital, I made friends with some of the people there that kind of got released, because he works for like a government facility in Phoenix. She goes, hey, we really can't send these out for testing, but this is like the cancer stuff, you know. So my situation back then, had I not been married to a medical person, I probably would have went forward trying to do the lawsuit, but I couldn't do that now, and that's why I'm trying to help people now understand that this is a very serious issue. I lost my kidney, my life, my marriage, my business. I lost everything, and the plug that is all of my clients have implants. So what does that say to you? I lost half my business because of that too, because I'm trying to say, hey, you really should take these implants out, because you guys all complain about your hair loss, but now you're complaining about fatigue, memory loss, you're sick, you're always bleeding. I mean, these people give me all these symptoms like there's something wrong with you. Get your implants out. But they just aren't listening.
So I'm curious now. You've gotten the implants out. You know, you've explanted.
Correct.
Do you feel 100% back to normal now?
So I had the implants out, and I'm not joking you. 2 weeks later, I went on a 40-mile bike ride. I haven't hiked for 15 years because after my knee blew out, I didn't want to have a knee surgery. So I said, I'm not having no knee surgery crap. Just do what you need to do to fix it so I can at least work out, because I wasn't going to have fake plastic knee put in. I don't believe in that, right? So the doctor's like, okay, you're never going to be able to hike. I literally went on like a 10-mile hike. I joined this app called Strava, and I'm like a hardcore chick now. Like, I mean, considering, like, I feel fantastic. That's what I'm telling people. Like, do you not want to be like who I am? I feel fantastic health-wise. I've never felt better than I feel today. So,
which is incredible. I mean, so is that a common scenario with all the people once they remove the implant, when they do the explant, that their health all of a sudden just take a turn for the better?
Yes. Now, I've been trying to do interviews. Like I said, it's hard right now because I've been doing a lot of advocacy for my own personal career against our governor, okay, because they're trying to deregulate everything right now. So the women in groups will tell you, like, I'm getting more stories immediately. I'm saying, like, gosh, within 2 weeks, they're like, holy crap, like my brain fog, my joint pain. Well, think about it, because that's causing inflammation all the time in your body. You take it out, and then all of a sudden it's like not there. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, so which is amazing. So that just proves the resilience of the body. You know, once you remove the stressor, or once you remove what is kind of feeding toxins into your body or suppressing your immune system, then the body has the ability to bounce back, and you can really turn things around quickly.
Well, and a lot of the women too, and I mean, it's not a big deal. Sometimes, like I said to you, and it's no negativity against anyone that's a doctor. My ex still to this day will not understand what I'm saying right now in spite of everything. But if some of us have MSTHR, not a big deal, okay? It just means we can't methylate B vitamins. So here we are now, and then we have all this other crap going on. Put the implants in. We're told to take all these supplements. Then there start being like signs of MS start happening. So it's like all this weird stuff was happening because people are like, what's MSTHR? It's like, well, we can't absorb B vitamins. So if you have implants, it's removing all of the minerals. None of us are getting any minerals at all. Like we're lacking D, B17, basic like K. I mean, there's so many things that the implants intercept because the cells aren't being able to absorb any of those nutrients. So you have these women in groups who barely can function, spending $300 just on supplements, and stuff isn't even working because we have MTHFR. You know what I mean?
So with that, okay, so because of the MTHFR, which is a genetic defect, which
right.
has to do with how you methylate. Obviously, right. you need certain nutrients to kind of keep that genetic dysfunction, kind of balance that out in some way. But then,
right.
Does the implant then impact that as well, or I'm not the genetic defect, but your ability to absorb nutrients and minerals? I mean, does the implant impact that, or is it just a genetic defect that does that?
Yes, because in the groups that I have, because we have 3 groups and then I was in a larger group, it seems as though a big % of us only inherited that mutation after implanting. Now, even though the doctors say, oh, it's your DNA, well, we all know we can change our DNA by words, thinking, eating. We can create new behavior in 30 days. And even in a year, you can create a new body, right? Cellular energy, mitochondria, all of that stuff. So I say to this infectious guy, how is this like genetic mutation? Like, I don't understand it as. He goes, I don't think it is. He goes, we don't have the facts or the science yet, but a lot of you ladies with implants are now contracting all of these mutations, which makes complete sense, which is why we're all tired because we have no B energy supplements,
So it's actually like the breast implant is creating these genetic defects. So these heavy metals, these chemicals, these pathogens that are involved, like you're mentioning Lyme and Epstein-Barr, all of this, sum total of all of that is actually altering your genetic makeup so that you're less able to absorb nutrients and less able to detoxify.
Correct. And I believe when I had mentioned Dr. Fang, I told you she's the pioneer of all of this. Like, she'll tell you hands down about all of those mutations.
580 AM, KIDO Nampa, K298CN Boise, 107.5 FM Boise, KIDO Talk Radio, Fox News Now.